Well, despite the magnitude of the stock market rebound, more professional fund managers think that we're still in a bear market, although it's a lot fewer than a month ago. By the way, 78% of those same fund managers cited in the latest Bank of America manager survey said that the market is overbought. Sounds like that's the ultimate buy signal to me. Let's ask two of the best. Voltec Capital Markets Chief Strategist Kathryn Rooney Vera, along with Optimal Capital Director of Strategy Francis Newton-Stacy. Kathryn, let me start with you. These fund managers, I got to tell you, they're wrong a lot more than they're right. I think they're the perfect contrarian indicator. But they're still saying that this is still a bear market. Where do you think we are?
Well, it can't be a bear market by definition if the Fed steps in to purchase assets anytime the market drops. So what would have been a bear market, Charles, will not manifest, even if it was required to occur. Let's say that the U.S. economy encounters itself in a W-type rebound, not a V-shaped. Well, the Fed is there to backstop the markets. I think that's been very explicitly stated by Jay Powell. So no, this is not a bear market rally. We need to be looking to buy any volatility to the downside and accumulate cautiously and methodically into risk assets.
Francis?
Yeah, so I agree with Kathryn entirely. I think that this should have been a bear market, but the Fed has stepped in an unprecedented manner. And just the other day when we saw some weakness in the markets, they came in and immediately announced that they were going to be buying bonds directly from corporations rather than just via the ETFs as they had done before. And to further her point, I would say that the Fed has a lot of firepower left. The most recent estimate I've seen is that they've deployed $95 billion of the $2.6 trillion that they've committed to those lending facilities, and they have yet to buy equities, which they said is not off the table. So I agree with Kathryn that I think we'll continue to see some high volatility and some pullbacks, but the mode is don't fight the Fed.
And
don't fight
Charles,
the Fed.
Can I jump in here?
It's tried and true. Yeah, sure.
Charles, there's one question that no one has been talking about that has to be asked at the next Fed presser. What is the Fed's exit plan, and what is the Fed's plan when and if they get losses on their balance sheet? Because they can't take the losses, so who assumes them? The taxpayer. Right. That question must be posed to Jerome Powell at the next presser.
I think someone may have asked him today. He said at some point they'll just let the balance sheet run off naturally, and as far as the losses, they'll take them to Yucca Mountain. So I'm just answering a form, but I get where you're coming from. Wherever you park nuclear waste, that's where you'll park the Fed's losses. So the question then, ladies, is the market. It's got to broaden out, right? Only 120 stocks are up this year from the S&P. Now, one area that's super hot today, it's underscored by Nicola, right? It got an outperform rating from Cowen, a top-tier firm, $79 target. That means they think it's a $28 billion company with no sales. That means it's more valuable than Ford at $25 billion, Fiat at $19 billion. And then yesterday, if you see this, did you see Royal Pharma, the IPO, took off like a rocket. So you've got IPO, special purpose acquisition companies, all on fire, Francis. Is this good or bad for the market? Is it something that you think is encouraging, or is it a yellow flag?
No, I think that they're also following the trend of the Fed. I think what's interesting now about the IPO market in general is the fact that they'll have some better negotiating tools given the pandemic and given, potential weakness in some of the balance sheets. However, with the backstop of the Fed, they can go in with that kind of confidence. And I feel like as long as the Fed continues to backstop any weakness in the markets, that we will see an uptick in IPOs. Of course, threatening that would be any surprises, and there are a lot of potential surprises. There are some headwinds coming up. You've got the unemployment insurance coming to an end thus far on July 31st. You've got taxes due on July 15th, which could create somewhat of a liquidity concern. You've got airlines potentially laying off employees at the end of September, and you've got the forbearance going away at the end of October. So those are the headwinds. But for right now, the Fed has our back, and the IPO market is going to respond accordingly.
I was wondering when my accountant was calling me over the weekend. I forgot taxes are coming up. Real quick, Kathryn, some of the things you're spying, we're talking about the market going up, but the Fed, as a backstop, and perhaps the federal government reloading all those programs that Francis talked about. Is there any specific areas we should be looking at?
Yeah, look, I like banks. Banks have been a laggard. They really haven't done as well as the broader market, and they have pulled up the rear in this rally. So if we're talking about the best case scenario coming to fruition, Charles, which is already baked into multiples of 25 times, the steepest since the dot-com bubble and back in the year 2000, then let's pick some sectors. And I like the banks because banks are part of the solution. They're not part of the problem. I think zero rates are already priced in, and banks could do well if, in fact, we do get a very robust recovery.
All right, ladies, we got to leave it there. Kathryn and Frances, thank you both very much. Always a pleasure. Great stuff.